Hey everyone, this is Dre of Recovery One Drones. I hope everyone can hear me pretty well. Just got back in from the Vegas drone meetup, and I want to just tell you about the awesome time my wife and I had. It was a event that would cover, if you as an individual, as a drone pilot, uh, even things there for the wives, even if you brought children, they had something going on for everyone who was there. And that's great. I have to really give a tip of the cap to Bob Dempsey of Old Farts with Drones. That's his Facebook page handle. And Tom Dowling. They did an awesome job. And I tell you what, those guys may be the figureheads, but I truly have to give the praise to their volunteer group. And I mean, they must have almost close to 20 volunteers helping them out with this event. I can imagine that it's tough for you as individuals, but when you have a large amount of volunteers to help with everybody who shows up to sign up for the event at the time, people there to direct you to where you need to go, all of the sponsors who were there. Like I say, big thanks, shout out to Las Vegas PD and Henderson PD for being out there showing off their equipment, doing a little small demonstration of their gear. So, like I say, it was a good time had by all. A lot of, like I say, press to flesh type of event that you get to see folks that a lot of us only interact online. So you get to see a lot of these people. I would say the Vegas community has a great support. They turn out. They turn out and they turn up. So, like I said, those of us coming in, we just add a little bit of sprinkle because that Vegas group is very, very dedicated, very powerful group in itself. And like I said, it's not just a group of old guys hanging out. They got people who are just in their 20s and 30s and going up to their 70s in that group, and probably a few others that may be a little older. But I was thoroughly impressed. This is the second year they have done this. I was a sponsor last year, and like I say, they're just getting bigger and better, and it's just great. But I'm gonna talk about a lot of things that went on there that just I felt were just what made this meetup just that I don't want to compare it to anybody else's, but it was something that somebody like me really enjoyed, you know. And I'm gonna go by day, as far as a review, recap, what you want to call it, and just let you know how things went. I came up on Thursday evening, so I didn't want to be pressed. Last year, I came on Friday and had to play catch up a little bit, but this time I came a day early, so I would not be in that mode. And I was just really glad I made that decision, so to speak. But like I say, Friday morning was a great opportunity for beginners, intermediate people, and some salty dogs like me to sit in on some courses. Some of the courses were being sponsored by Pilot Institute. Greg and his team were there and doing a great job as always. And there's another young man who had another group there who taught the mapping course. He goes by Victory, and he did an excellent job. It was a 4-hour course. And like I said, I've been doing mapping slash photogrammetry type work ever since I got into it. That's what the reason why I got into drones, because I come from a construction background. So a lot of this was initially review. And I always tell people sometimes when you've been doing something for so long, you forget some of the basics. Sometimes you need those real reminders. Sometimes we pick up bad habits, by cutting corners or anything like that and not realize it. So it's always good to get that refresher type course in you. And in this afternoon class that Victory gave, he talked about LiDAR system. Now, I'm familiar with LiDAR a little bit. It's been something that I have been looking to get into down the road. But the way he explained it, and then he talked about the software that you could use it with, and then even software, even with regular photogrammetry mapping, he showed us software. I can't remember the name of it. It begins with a C. I want to say Cersei, something like that. And he showed us how this free online software can take your data set, basically all your photos you capture, and you can upload it to their system and create what you flew. And it was just awesome. And he even talked about how you can take it a step further and even create a 3D environment at doing a walkthrough. And there were some more gadgets. There were some things talking about a new camera that was coming out that does interior walkthrough work. And I said, so it was very informative. I kind of wish I had a chance to sit in each class because I heard other people talking, because all the classes happen at the same time. So I heard other people talking about the business class and the things that were covered in that class. And it's something that I've always tried to preach about with people when you're talking about businesses and knowing your local rules and regulations. And it was something that was brought out. How are you doing, James? Something that was brought out that a lot of people get confused. And that's why I want to emphasize this a little bit. Even though you may get a Lance authorization, or you went through to get the flight authorization through Drone Zone, your flight authorization does not override local ordinances or state law. Let me say that again. Your FAA authorization does not override local ordinances or state laws. And I know there's been instances we've seen online, and the one I come to mind was the issue down in Florida where the gentleman was flying over a development that was in process. And, I can tell folks if we don't talk about this kind of stuff, we need to explain ourselves a little bit and recognize that state laws, local ordinances can take precedence over FAA rules and regulation. And the reason why I say that is always the devil in the details. And what I'm saying is that, especially like me, I'm a person who flies over other people's property. And this is why I tell people I can have FAA approval. It could be Class G airspace. And you also got to be, if you're flying over someone else's property, like I said, I do a lot of Amazon warehouses and Walmart warehouses and large housing tracts. That property is private property. So a lot of times when I do jobs of that nature, and it may be a photogrammetry, it may be for solar inspection, it may be whatever the case is, I need to inform them of my presence and what I'm doing. And this, I had one at a Walmart facility in Colton, California, this a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. And I went up, contacted the safety individual of the facility, and I got turned down. They said, no, we're not allowing this because mainly on Walmart's side, this facility was not a Walmart facility. It was a third-party facility, okay? So the information had not been passed down to that facility to know that I was going to be coming on that date to conduct aerial work. So they turned me down, so I had to leave. Even though I was not going to be flying from on their property itself, I'll be flying from off-site on to on-site. But that's why I tell people a lot of times you have to be aware, because I say you're taking pictures of their facilities. So even though I'm not violating airspace rules and regulations, I could be held in charge with privacy issues. And that's why I tell people you got to be aware of what's going on in your local area. So they may not charge you with violations of airspace, but they can charge you with violation of privacy. And in a lot of areas, that's a straight felony charge. Some have different levels where it goes from misdemeanor to felony, depending upon the extent and what's been taken pictures of. So that's why you always got to be aware of what's going on. And when you're flying over someone else's property that you're taking photographs or video of, you need to let them know of your presence and the intent of your flight. So that way everybody's on the same page and you don't get somebody, you don't notify them, all of a sudden somebody from the local security might be there or local law enforcement, if they go that far, pulls up on you and asks you what's going on. Now, I've had this happen to me doing a job on a house. Neighbors next door called because, like I say, you just don't stay on the property. I had to orbit around on the adjacent property to get the backside of this house. And they called the local authorities, took down my license plate. But a week later, police officers showed up at my residence asking questions about who I was and all this kind of stuff. So I had to produce the job card that I had for that job. I even produced the flight path that I did off my Air Data account to show the officers, which I was lucky enough to get the officer from the department who ran their drone team. So once he saw that it was a job that I was doing, secondly, he saw the flight data that I did, you know, he was satisfied that I was not there for the purpose of evading or intruding upon that person's property without permission. So like I said again, it was a property adjacent to the property I was there to film. So a lot of times when you do real estate work, you know, which I don't do too often, those are the things you have to look at, take account for, and go from there. So that was some information I heard about the business class, telling people things about, you know, you may have to get a local business license depending upon the rules and regulations of where you live. You know, where I live at, I'm not required because most of my work, I would say 99% of my work is all internet based. I get contacted through text messages, emails, phone calls to do work outside of my community that I live in. I very rarely take jobs in the area I live in, and that's because of potential conflicts of interest. I've been an inspector for many years in my city. Just about most of the warehouses that are in my area, I was an inspector on those jobs. So I do not want, even though it may not actually be a conflict, I do not want to give the appearance of a conflict of interest of me doing additional work on projects I worked on before on behalf of the city. So I try to avoid that personally myself. And also, if you're doing other social media work, if you're lucky enough to get into the entertainment business, you may actually be required to pull a filming permit from the local jurisdiction that you're in. So these are things they covered over in the business class itself. I'm not sure. I didn't hear anybody else talk about the other classes available, but I did hear some people talk about some of the things they covered in the business course. And like I said, the mapping course was very like a refresher for me, and I appreciate it. And it let me know that I'm still on the right track and I have not gone off the rails and everything else. And the field that involved in as far as drones, which is basically mapping and photogrammetry, I'm continuing on in the right direction. So with that enough right here, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Air Data on here, which I fully support. Like I said, if it wasn't for Air Data, I might have been singing a different tune to those officers.
When your flight data matters.
All right, now you saw there was a promo code for Recovery One Drone 20 that'll give you 20% off on a yearly subscription for Air Data. So whenever your renewal date is, use that Recovery One Drone 20 for a 20% discount. Like I said, every little bit helps. Matter of fact, my renewal comes up in next month in December. And believe me, I want that 20% discount. So let's continue on. So as always, like I said, the classes to me were very inspiring. I'm a type of person from my military background, law enforcement background, and construction background. Training. That is something I live and breathe. I believe in training. I mean, I'm the safety officer for the city that I work for, and training is what I preach. You know, for the guys that are under me, which is every employee in the city except for the PD, fall under my jurisdiction as far as overseeing their training. I just had 2 training classes in the last week before I went to Vegas. I had one, a class on fentanyl, and I gave that, had a guy come in I do a class to our homeless quality of life team. They go out and clean up all the homeless encampments. And there is a high percentage chance that those individuals may come in contact with fentanyl substance, or they may come in contact with someone who is going through a fentanyl episode. So like I say, during that class, they were made aware, they were trained upon the symptoms to look out for, and they were given and trained on how to administer the Narcan that can save someone's life. And I always preach to my guys, it would be CPR or like this Narcan substance. The life you save might be your partner's. Simple as that. I tell these guys, you kind of laugh it off and everything up. I say, hey, all you guys want to go home to your families, and you want to hopefully feel you feel comfortable with your partner while you're out there. That he's got your back and you have their back. So that's important to me, and I hope it is important to them, because we had to go out there and make sure I am trying to protect them at all costs. The next class I gave, training wise, before I left for Vegas, I gave a active shooter class to our custodial crew throughout the city, and I'm a trained instructor in that, and that's one of my big things, is to let them aware of what they need to be aware of, what they can possibly do, and so forth, as far as an active shooter. Now, the city of San Bernardino, where I live and work, we have had our active shooter incident. It happened about 2015. It was a Christmas party for the county employees. And that's why I tell them, I said, I'm not real concerned about the person coming off the street and doing a mass shooting. I'm worried about that employee that you work with every day. And I tell them why. It's simply because that employee knows everything you know. He knows where you guys are going to go hide at. He knows where all the locked rooms are at and everything else. So I tell them, I say, even when you would deal with employees, do not blow off someone who's having a bad day. Pay attention to your surroundings at all times. And like I say, all that earbud wearing and headphone stuff, that's a big no-no, because you'll never know when it's coming until it's too late. So those are the kind of things I do with my people as far as the training. So I was very excited about the class, and even more excited when I got this certificate. Okay? Certificate in mapping. And I talked with, I talked with Greg and his people about that. That is one of the things I feel is still missing in the drone community, is training classes. Because like I said, a lot of folks want to get into it and everything else. And people always ask about, well, how do I get clients and everything else? I said, well, getting clients is what we all want to do. And it's always that hurdle that a lot of us continually have problems getting over. But one of the biggest things that can help you get over that hurdle is be able to show your training. A lot of folks, like I say, a lot of us in our own professions and everything else, we have educational certification, we may have trade school certification, and we have tons of experience. But when it comes to drones, most people are unaware of what type of training, whatever. We go out and get a Part 107. Okay, Part 107 is great. And I always tell people Part 107 is the bare minimum of what you need to be a pilot that could earn an income. Courses like this would tell somebody, because I can add that certificate onto my Air Data account. I can add it to whatever else, put it on my business cards or whatever. That, hey, now I got a certification that I got training in photogrammetry, mapping, and 3D modeling. Okay, so I always tell people, what's going to make someone want to hire you over somebody else? So I'm saying, the more you can stack the deck for yourself, the more chances that you'll get the job. and more repeat business that you'll get the job because they'll feel comfortable. He says, hey, that guy's trained. He knows what he's doing. Let me call him back to go do another facility and everything else. Because like I said, when you get letters like this from people, let me hold this up. This is a letter from Walmart for that facility guy I got to go back to tomorrow. Give me authorization from Walmart to go fly that facility. And that's what I show the people. I say, hey, Walmart authorized me to be here, yada, yada, yada. So we go from there. So that's why, I tell you, these are the steps for you to, go through, and you want to go through these steps because it makes you look more professional. And that's another thing I talk about is conduct yourself in a professional manner. Try to do your best to look professional and everything else and be able to speak to people on their level. A lot of folks you're going to deal with as a professional pilot are going to be facility managers, site foremen, engineers, and you may be lucky enough to run to a developer. So you want to be able to speak from a position of knowledge when you talk to these people, be able to speak their language. And so they understand what you're saying and you understand what they're saying to you for the most part. So that night, to move on a little bit, that night was the big mixer. And we had it the same place we did the year before. Nice little tavern / pub there, sports bar, because there are TVs wall to wall playing every sporting event you can want to look at and everything. Had a great time, Pizza was flowing, and I think they had some shrimp going on there. And like I say, those guys, because of the sponsor they had, you got your first drink free, all that kind of good stuff with your little stuff that they gave you, along with your swag gear that you get, which is the swag gear. A lot of people kind of balked. I know last year when they said, oh, $49, that's, $49 out of my pocket, but your t-shirt, hat, keychains, lanyard, all that's in the swag bag. So you're not walking away free. Like I say, you got a free drink at the mixer there, and then stayed that night, like I say, meeting and greeting people, having a good time, and then we rolled into Saturday morning. Saturday morning starts off with a bang. Full breakfast, everything from breakfast burritos to, I don't know if you guys saw the picture I posted, steak and eggs. And I'm not usually a big breakfast eater. And I told my wife, I'm going to try some steak and eggs. I've never had steak and eggs before. That's usually my thing. I'm basically a waffles and pancake guy. But I said, I'm going to go for some steak and eggs. Excellent meal. Excellent meal. I think it was for I know steak and eggs is usually a very thin piece of meat. They did a great job of cooking it. Great job and stuff. So I was very pleased. And then once everybody ate, we started the panel. On this panel, we had Greg from Pilot Institute. We had Mr. Wayne Baker from DGI. We had another gentleman, he had the Marine Corps hat on, who is the owner of Drone Doctor, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit here. We had another gentleman, a retired lieutenant colonel, who I believe was the commanding officer of a drone group, military drone group that has another business now dealing with basically training is what he does, and he's facilitating with different organizations to offer classes and everything else in the drone industry. So those are, and then we had a couple of ladies. We had one lady from the Las Vegas PD in their group, and then we had another lady from Southern California, Desiree, who does a young ladies course in the San Diego area to teach young girls to get into drones. And it couldn't be more fitting about what she's doing, because I tell you now, the people there, like I said, a lot of guys like me, I bring my wife and everything else, but there was a significant amount of women there this year over last year. And I would say with wives and the actual women pilots that were there, It's about a 60-40 split in overall attendance. And I'll show you guys here a picture of that real quick. Let me bring this over and blow that up a little bit. This is the first picture I'm going to show you is the full shot here. This is the picture of everybody, I believe, in a full picture there. Okay. Now I'm going to go over and switch it to the pictures of just the ladies themselves. Let me get it a little bigger. See if I can get it to 200%. There we go. Those are the ladies right there. And you can see a few of them got on FPV goggles and stuff like that. I think like 2 of them got FPV goggles on. So they're doing everything. They're not just flying little small drones and stuff. These ladies are fully immersed into the drone industry itself. They're flying them. So that's where they're at. Okay. So, like I said, the industry's growing. And it's growing from just us old farts that have nothing else to do, our new hobby. But this is something that's truly growing as an industry. It is truly growing as a hobby. And everybody's getting involved from teenagers up to retirees. So it gives us a lot to have a common bond. When you out there, I saw several fathers with their children, showing them, and some of them, like I said, I bought a Neo for my grandson, and here I am calling myself trying to train him. As soon as I put the controller in his hands, it was nothing for him because that is what he normally does with the game controllers. So he had no problem dealing with that and adapted himself to what was going on. So great. Hey, V-Dub, good to see you. So that was very encouraging. I like that a lot. And like I say, the younger kids, they learn it real fast because them coming from console gamings and everything else, it's second nature to them. Where, a lot of us old guys like myself, we had to go out and kind of like train a little bit, train ourselves. But these kids catch on real fast, and that's awesome. So like I say, the fly-in on Saturday afternoon, they had food trucks out there. If you wanted tacos and things of that nature, was great. Another one had barbecue stuff, everything from barbecue chicken, brisket, hot links, and whatever else you wanted from that truck. So, and once again, you got a little voucher, $10 off. So like I say, this is what Bob and Tom has been putting together. So it wasn't like you were gonna be spending a ton of money. I put like this here for my wife ordered a combo plate, rib and something else, and I ordered a pulled pork sandwich with sodas. With that little ticket ripoff, it should have been close to about $30. I paid $16, and we were good. So that's a good price that you can hardly get a $16 meal just by yourself. And I bought something for me and my wife. So that was awesome. So like I say, another tip of the cap to Bob and Tom for them working with these people. These people are regular businesses themselves. So like I say, they had as they say, a captive audience. So whatever they didn't make on the dollar, they made it up in value. And sometimes that's even better. Because when you got a bunch of people, people are going to buy more than what they usually buy. When you're the only game in town. So that was awesome too. And like I said, I'll give you a picture of the group shot here. Let me go back. There we go. Let me turn this in. Get you guys over. This is the full group that was out at the fly-in there. So like I said, you can see you compare it to the ladies that were there, and here's the rest of the group that were there in the picture. So it was a great time for everyone who came out and participated. Really good time. All right. Take a quick break here. Do a little advertising for Pilot Institute. And this is why I talk about training, because if you want to be the best, you got to train with the best.
You have to train with the best. Pilot Institute.
All right, that's my little take with Pod Institute, and we're gonna go on from there. Now, there were a lot of things also going on that I guess on Sunday they were doing. There was a sign up for a group that takes you out into the mountain areas around Las Vegas and even out further in the desert. Now, if you want to go with these folks, they would take you out in their off road vehicles and take you out on your own Discovery Channel adventure. You know, a lot of times we see a lot of these things. How we doing, Tom? A lot of these things on Discovery Channel, and we can tell those of us who've flown for a while, we know they're flying drones, and we're like, man, I would love to get out there and fly a drone like that in a national park or somewhere over some kind of landscape. And these folks are the ones who will be able to take you out there in their vehicles and take you to these locations that would just, draw jaw dropping is what it is. And you get opportunity. And I believe there was a group that were going down, basically coming back to my neck of the woods into California to do the Lake Dolores abandoned water park where they like to do a lot of FPV flying. So, and also there's other locations. So there was a lot of things for people to do. Like I said, it covered everything from kids all the way up to the old guys. Drone Envisions. Thank you, Tom. Drone Envisions was the group. And speaking about some of the folks that were there, Drone Envisions is the one that does the, I would say, the adventure thing, taking you out in the thing. But like I say, the drone doctor, who one of the gentlemen were on the panel, he not only is a reseller of drones, but he repairs drones. And I know that has been a big topic of discussion with everyone. What do I do if I crash my drone? Well, dronedoctor.com may be your lifesaver. They are here in Las Vegas. So those of us here who live out west, that might be your lifeline to send your drone in to get it repaired. Yes, Mr. Jose Figueroa was the owner and founder of Drone Doctor. And I say he's not a new guy off the block. This guy has been repairing drones, I think, since around 2015 or not even, probably longer than that. So it's a guy, he said he's been around drones for quite a while, and he's fixed everything from the small ones to the big ones. So you're not dealing with a rookie. You're actually getting someone with some serious experience. And like I said, he is also a reseller of drones, from consumer level drones to enterprise level drones. So like a person like me, I've done quite a bit of business for my fleet with several different people. But like I said, I like to keep my money as local as possible. So next time I'm into the market for a replacement or for another drone, I know people like the Drone Doctor and Blue Skies up in the state of Washington are going to be those two individuals for sure that I'm aware of, that I will be contacting them to see what they can do for me. So it's good to find out. Like, once again, these meetups provide opportunities to what we might need to find out what's available for us. A lot of us have become so dependent upon DJI to handle everything for us. But as we all know, things are may not be going in that direction for us to use that resource in the future. So it's great that we have other means and resources to keep us flying. And like I say, out there that fly in the other day, I saw Neos, I saw little small FPVs, and I saw Tom's big old Mavic 4 Pro out there. That thing's a big bird. It's getting close to my M30T. That thing like it's pregnant. But yeah, it's great. And like I said, we can only encourage you guys to keep flying. do what you do. Know your rules and regulations of where you're at, where you're flying at. And if you're doing commercial work, or if you're just a hobbyist and you're out flying somewhere where you may be over people's property and whatever, especially if you're flying over businesses and so to speak, if you're photographing activity on the ground, you may want to take that extra step to inform them who, what, where, and why. Some may not care. Others may tell you, no, thank you, because you got to realize this is their business. When you hear the term intellectual properties, even for shipping and receiving, that's why they got those big old walls and high fences around those facilities, because they don't want no prying eyes. So like I say, be careful where you fly at. Try to find those areas that are just pretty much empty to fly, so you don't have those uncomfortable interactions from security guards or police departments or whatever it may be. Now, the last thing I'm going to say before I get out of here, like I say, Las Vegas PD was out there. Henderson PD was out there. I'm trying to think if I got any pictures of them. Nope, didn't have any pictures of them. But let me touch on this right quick. A lot of us know Jeff Norman. And I know this is his thing here because got Jeff, didn't put his last name, and I'll show it to you. For those of you who like doing photography work, and we know it can be tricky, for me, like I said, I do construction work. It ain't pretty, but I understand it, and I know what I'm looking for. So those you like taking those lighthouses and windmills and sunrises and sunsets and things of that nature, Jeff is doing an online class here. You can see the what's it called, the QR code, and he's willing to share his time to help you learn about photography. And I tell a lot of folks who get into drones, those who have a photography background, who understand different steps and different things that you have to do to adjust the apertures and everything else, they're leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of rest of us who just get up and start flying. These guys are really into it down the road. So that's something you might want to look at right there if you're into photography. Let me move that out the way and get back here. Okay. All right. Okay. Why that page not there? We're not going to worry about that because I'm almost about to wrap this up. And Tom just reminded me, Red Rock Search and Rescue was out there also. So there's a lot to learn. As I always tell people, a lot to learn from out there. A lot of time it's in your own community. You just need to do a little searching. And that's why I tell a lot of guys who want to get into search and rescue, just about any, I would say, decent sized department may have what we call CERT teams. And basically it stands for Civilian Emergency Rescue Team. And you may need to start there to find out if if that's your interest, start there to find out what's the capabilities, what is their makeup or setup they have right now, and if they're looking for civilians to build their team. So that way, like I said, once again, you don't want to go out on your own when a incident happens or a natural disaster. You want to be part of a organized group that way you can be training with, and that way when you get deployed out there, everybody knows where you're at, and then that minimizes the incidents like that would happen in Texas and stuff. And come to find out, all because somebody didn't communicate with somebody else, you had an authorized drone flight by a trooper collide with a military helicopter. And that's because of miscommunication. So even though the initial word was it was somebody out willy-nilly and stuff, but truly it was a miscommunication between two different agencies that didn't get the word that drones were operating in this area, and that the helicopter should have been flying at a higher altitude or outside that area altogether. So that's why I'm saying that, you want to make sure that you're a part of a team, a group, and everybody's been assigned to everything that they're doing. Now, got a little something for all you guys who love those minis or have a mini but want to get into commercial work. There is a group I ran into there. I don't know how they pronounce the name, but I'm going to bring up their webpage right here. These gentlemen are doing general photogrammetry work with mini drones. They are actually prefer that you use mini drones. Okay. And they pay, sometimes not big payouts, but they are paying. And they even, if you don't have a drone, they're willing to, I guess, finance you a drone or whatever the case may be. So you can go out, and they are nationwide. They are nationwide. And I talked with them a little bit and found out, I always ask the one question. I said, do you guys work with Ezra? Now, if you don't know who Ezra is, as a ESRI, Ezra is probably one of the global firms that do it mapping. Ezra is right near me, about 15 minutes away in the city of Redlands, California. And they do maps for global. I mean, it may be, different countries and everything else. So it's not just the United States and anything else. So they say, yes, they have agreements with Ezra. So that means the work itself is never ending. So if you have a mini drone, these are the folks you may want to try to get in contact with. And like I say, make a few dollars for yourself. I had to kind of giggle. I told them, I said, I'm old school, so I have all the bigger drones. And I asked them a question. I said, are you sure? And they said, yeah, we've been doing this for quite a while. And I said, because mostly, you want to go out and do, photogrammetry mapping work. They always want you to have a 1-inch sensor. They want you to be mechanical shutter, all this kind of stuff that we talk about, in construction area. These guys are talking about you can use a Mini 2, 3, 4, new Mini 5, and work with these guys. So that is a great opportunity if you're looking to get into, that's try to get in a little business, make a little money on the side. There's no, just about everything I know in the drone community, I would say no one forces, you're not punching a clock. You don't actually work for anybody that you punch a clock for. Everything's kind of volunteer and stuff. So like I said, you can work as hard as you want, or you could just be, as we always say, it could be beer money. You go out there and do some beer money work. But they do, like I said, they're nationwide, and they're looking for pilots to team up with to fly locations in various areas. It might be one of your areas, so to speak. So, yeah, look up that group there and see if there's something. Spec C. That's what. Thank you, Tom. I'm glad you're in the chat here, Sunka. I didn't want to mess up the name. Spec C is how you pronounce it, but it's SPEXI, Spec C. And I can say, if I was just getting into this and I say, a lot of folks don't have that, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to spend on something, more expensive. Here you can get under the sub 1,000 range and go out there and make you a little money and get a little return on your investment real fast. So I can say there was a lot of things to learn, and that's why I appreciate what Tom and Bob put together, because there is something there for everyone. Old salty dog like me or somebody brand new to the industry. There was something there for everybody to learn, to engage with, to find out more information, because the industry is continue to grow. And that's why I kind of didn't do my last call at the end of October, because I wanted something positive to talk about. I'm tired of hearing about the ban and all this kind of stuff, the custom and border patrol crap and everything else. I wanted to be able to come and talk to you guys about something positive and that the industry is still growing. And like I say, you talk to the drone doctor, he is still selling DJI drones. And like I said he's able to get them. It may take maybe an extra week or so, but it has not been shut down or cut off. And like I said to somebody the other day, is that most of the legislation that is being proposed is basically for government agencies. Okay? They're saying that the federal government agencies, which is nothing new, they have been not able to buy drones for a couple of years now. And then the big thing is when you cut down the funding, which comes from the federal government down to your states, that's when you get your local first responders. That's how you cut their legs off. They can't apply for grants or anything else that comes from the federal government to aid first responders. They can't use that money to buy Chinese or whoever's name in that legislation. They can't use those funds to buy those type of drones. And like I said, if you see some of the pictures I posted online, if you notice that the Las Vegas police and the Henderson police both are using the Skydio X10s. So you got to go, sometimes you got to adapt, you got to go what the flow is, but that's how they're cutting back on actual government agencies. There's nothing in any legislation that I have read that says that the average Joe or Judy cannot purchase or fly a Chinese-made drone. Now, it may be a little tough to get one shipped into you, but I have not seen anything that has been stated in direct terms that no Chinese-made drones will not be able to be sold to regular consumers. Now, somebody like me who do a lot of contract work and everything else, if I get on another government job, that might be where I may run into it because there may be strings attached to that money for that project that says that, drone activity has to be conducted with a non-Chinese made drone. And that means either I have to back out of that position or I have to go out and purchase a non-Chinese made drone. But there's nothing for us as regular consumers or even contractors like me that I cannot continue to purchase said drones. And the ones that we already have, even though the FCC has given themselves the authority, we just don't see that happening to where, and even then, I think if you watch the video about the panel that I put out about an hour ago, 2 hours ago, that even Greg talked about it in plain terms, that FCC authority doesn't mean they can brick your drone. It just means that if someone comes up to you and says, hey, what drone you flying, then that might be an issue then. But your drone will not be bricked. It is just like a law that says, hey, the speed limit is 55. If you get caught doing 70, oh well, that's the way it's going to be. So, like I said, find out the straight information. That's why I was so glad about the panel that we had Saturday morning. They gave out some really good information. And I always tell people, when we had Wayne Baker there, in case you don't know who Wayne Baker is, he's the one that had a cowboy hat on. Wayne Baker is one of the United States DJI representatives. So basically you're getting it from the horse's mouth. And that's why I prefer to get it from. That's why I tell folks, check all your sources, because we all been seeing all these videos springing up, drone ban, this, that, and everything else. I'm like, hey, I ain't seen nothing pass yet because they ain't been in session, and they have not truly explained how they're going to implement some of these things that we're hearing about. So the implementation is going to be key. So don't go out and have no fire sale about your drone, especially if it's an Autel or a DJI or whatever. Don't be having no fire sales because you might be flying that drone for the next 5-10 years. Who knows? So, like again, my time is always up, and Tom got me again. Wayne is the Director of Client Engagement for the United States. Well, in plain terms to me, when somebody says they're director of client engagement, that means you are the official United States rep for DJI. Okay? All that client engagement is just fluff. So, like I say, although I heard one guy say he just missed it by a week. He got married and did his honeymoon in Las Vegas. Hey, if you get a chance, guys, come on out next year. Tom and Bob have basically committed to have this event around the same time each year. So it's going to be within the same, between the 6th and the 10th. 4-day area, they're going to have this event somewhere in between there. So once again, this is Dre, Recovering One Drones. I appreciate Tom Dowling, his wife Roz, Bob Dempsey, his wife Audrey. Beautiful people. They did a great job. A lot. You realize just by seeing what's going on, the amount of effort that had to go in to really pull this event off. The facilities were nice. We were indoors in a nice rec center for the classrooms. So it was all, like I said, it's like going to a regular business conference. And then, like I said, we had the fly-in out there, that nice park and everything else. So, I mean, they didn't miss a beat. They didn't miss a beat at all. No complaints at all. Food trucks, flying, and the gifts were like outstanding. Oh, speaking of gifts, one last thing. Jay Santiago has to be the luckiest man in the world. Last year, Jay won, I believe it was the Mavic 3S. This year, he comes back and wins the accessory kit and a case. I mean, you can call rigged, but that's one way I could see it. It had to be rigged. So I'm like, somebody who wins the 3S a year ago comes back this year, and you gotta know who Jay is. Jay's from New York. Flew out here and stuff and won an accessory kit and a case for that drone he won the year before. And he wasn't even the grand prize winner. Another gentleman won the Mini 5 Pro. He was the grand prize winner. But I tell you what, yeah, Julio's the man. I'm like, I just shook my head, but I was really glad with my bobblehead of Greg from Pilot Institute. So on Mondays, if you chime into Pilot Institute's show, the answer and question period, and you wonder if Greg keeps bobbing his head for it, it's because I'm pucking that bobblehead, and stuff. So all right, folks, I don't know if Paul Regenbig is coming on tonight, but I'm not going to step on his time. It's 58 after the hour, so I'm going to be respectful of his time. I appreciate those who have tuned in and those who may watch later. I will see you down the road. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.